So there I was, 15 years old, standing on a rooftop at midnight, begging the universe to give me a cheat code. Let me back up. I died in an internet cafe. 3 days, no sleep, gaming like a lunatic. My heart just clocked out. Filed for early retirement. And instead of the afterlife, I woke up inside a novel I actually read, Battle Through the Heavens. The one where a kid gets bullied for being weak, then farms his way to God tier. Except I didn't wake up as that kid. I woke up as a side character, Etheria Kalen Kai, young lord of the richest auction house in a nowhere town. Rich, yeah. Strong, not even a little. No talent, no cheat, no system. For half a month, I stood on that roof every night, whispering to a system that wasn't answering. Like texting an ex. Nothing. Total silence. My whole master plan was pathetic. Find the real main character, a kid named Ren Han. Latch onto him before he blows up. Ride his coattails to the big leagues. That was it. That was my entire strategy. Become a barnacle on the protagonist's boat. Humiliating. It's been half a month, I muttered at the stars. I'm probably the saddest transmigrator alive. And right then, the second I gave up. Right then. Ding! Congratulations to the host for summoning the system for the 99th time. Auction 10,000-fold return activated. 99th time. The thing made me knock 99 times like some cosmic bouncer, but it opened. My eyes lit up like a kid on Christmas. System, what do you actually do? The answer rewired my whole brain. When I auction any item, the system rolls a dice and hands me back a reward worth a certain multiple of what I sold. Sometimes 1,000 times better, sometimes 10,000. Read that again. I sell a rock. The system hands me a mountain. I run an auction house. I own the building. I control what goes on stage. Do you understand what just happened? The universe accidentally gave a casino to a man who owns the casino. And then the newbie gift pack. Because of course, there's a newbie gift pack. Battle Venerable Trial card. One-time use, temporarily makes me a god. Character card. Summons an expert who obeys me completely. Resurrection card. Brings me back from the dead or someone else who died in the last day. And the big one. Heaven-swallowing demonic body. Devour anything in existence to grow stronger. I stood there, staring at 4 items that would each start a war on this continent. My hands were shaking. This is insane, I whispered, but I like it. So I fused the demonic body first. Grand idea, timing-wise. The power tore through me like I'd been fed into a blender. Every cell screaming, face gone corpse white. I nearly passed out on my own roof. Then it stopped, and I could devour. I stretched out my palm, and a hungry, sucking force poured out of it. Like the world owed me energy, and I was here to collect. Everything in heaven and earth, mine to eat. Then the character card. Summon. A shadow dropped onto the roof out of nowhere. Knelt. Subordinate greets master. No name, no face I could describe. Just a Do Huang expert, which in this world is the kind of strong that runs a whole city. And he was mine, completely. From now on, you're shade, I told him. Stay in the shadows. Don't show yourself unless I say. Subordinate obeys. And he vanished, like he was never there. I had a one-man deletion squad, and I'd owned him for 11 seconds. That's when the footsteps came up the stairs. She walked onto the roof in red, and the temperature of my brain dropped about 40 degrees. This was Mei Lin, chief auctioneer of my auction house, the most famous beauty in the city, the kind of famous where men show up to auctions just to watch her announce lots. Young lord, she said, and the word did something illegal to the air. Still awake? I kept my face flat. On the inside, I was doing that cartoon thing where the jaw hits the floor and rolls out the door. Skincare routine of the gods, this woman. Focus, Kalen Kai. Here's the thing about Mei Lin. She's brilliant. Low cultivation talent, so she can never fight her way up. Which means in a world that only respects strength, a beautiful woman is one bad day away from being someone's trophy or someone's marriage contract. She clawed out a spot in this town on pure competence and terror of the alternative. She built my auction house from nothing, and she was braced for me to take it all away. New young lord shows up. Usually that means the useful woman gets shoved out. So I did the one thing she never saw coming. Sister Mei Lin, I said, run it however you want. I won't interfere. Build this place up for me. And when I take over the whole family someday, I'll give you the life you actually want. She froze. Then she smiled, and this time it reached her eyes. Was that winning hearts? I think that was winning hearts. One more thing, I added, casual as anything. Send a few magic cores to my room. Tier 1 is fine. Magic cores are basically batteries ripped out of monsters, packed with violent energy so nasty that even a battle king wouldn't sip one raw. Explodes you from the inside. But me, I've got a stomach that eats the universe. Violent energy is just protein. Half an hour later, 5 glowing cores sat on my table. The golden dove doesn't miss a delivery. I picked one up. Devour. Bang. My gut clenched. Blue-white light flashed behind my eyes. I spat out a mouthful of gross liquid, which, gross, but Do Chi, 9th Dawn. Overnight jump. A 15-year-old at 9th Dawn is a certified genius in this whole empire. Cute, not my ceiling. My ceiling is the sky and then whatever's above the sky. I ate the other 4 cores like popcorn. By dawn, I'd broken through to Do Practitioner. Then I stopped, cracked my neck, and went downstairs. Because the real event was starting. The auction. The hall was packed. Every family head in town came to grovel at the new rich kid from the capital. I took a private room upstairs where I could watch everything and got comfortable. Because I was about to watch a slot machine pay out in front of a live audience who had no idea they were the coins. Mei Lin took the stage in red, and the whole room went quiet like church. First lot, a grade 1 healing pill, sold to a mercenary for 3,000 gold. Nice for him. Ding! Auction successful. 10,000-fold return triggered. You have obtained a 5th grade pill. I nearly bit through my own cheek. A 5th grade pill. In this entire empire, only the top alchemists can even dream of one. And I got it for auctioning off the medical equivalent of a band-aid. The system is a scam, and I am the beneficiary. Second lot, a cheap magic core sword. Ding! 1,000-fold return. 3rd grade ice sword, a blade that spits freezing sword chi. I got it for selling a butter knife. Third lot, a middling palm technique. Ding! 10,000-fold. An earth rank technique, the kind that used to start wars when one showed up. I got it while eating imaginary popcorn in a private box. Fourth lot, the finale. A cultivation technique this time, and down on the floor, the 3 great families of the town completely lost their minds bidding on it. 2 of them, Li and Tianlei, teamed up just to bleed the 3rd one dry out of spite. Watching rich men snipe each other over one scroll while I sat upstairs waiting for my prize, I have never felt so relaxed in my life. 250,000 gold, final bid. Ding! 10,000-fold return. Heaven rank cultivation technique, myriad beast true scripture. Heaven rank, top tier for the entire continent. I made a noise a grown man should not make. 4 lots, 4 treasures that don't belong in a town this size. And I paid with garbage. This wasn't an auction. It was a heist where the victims applauded. Mei Lin found me afterward, glowing. Best auction the house ever had. And I gave her the compliment she earned, because she earned it. And then I asked the only question that mattered. When's the next one? Next month. I blinked. What? Once a month. She explained it patiently. Auctions run on quality, not quantity. You can't gather treasures worth showing up for every week. The whole draw is scarcity. Lower the bar, and you kill the reputation. All completely correct and completely unacceptable. I own a machine that turns trash into treasure, and she's telling me I can run it 12 times a year? That's like owning a money printer and using it as a paperweight. So I sat there and I schemed, because scheming is my cardio. The problem was simple. Auctions are rare because good lots are rare. Solve the lots, solve the auctions. And I was sitting on a pile of stuff I'd never use. 3rd grade ice sword? I don't even know which end of a sword to hold. Perfect, I'll sell it. Except, the system has one rule. Anything it gives me won't trigger a return if I auction it again. No double dipping. That gave me a headache. Then it gave me an idea. The best kind of idea. The illegal kind. What if I don't resell the system's item? What if I trade it somewhere else for something new and then auction the something new at my house? The thing I got in trade isn't technically a system reward, so the system shouldn't recognize it. A loophole. A beautiful, glowing loophole. If it worked, I'd never run dry again. Every reward I didn't want becomes fuel for the next reward. A snowball rolling downhill forever, getting richer with every turn. My auctions would start where other auctions end, Earth rank lots as warm-ups. Who on this entire continent could resist a show like that? So I called my shadow. Shade, take the ice sword and the Earth rank palm. Go to the Black Corner region. Sell them at the Black Seal auction house and bring back whatever you get. The Black Corner region, the most lawless dump on the continent. No rules, no contracts, only barter, because gold is worthless where everyone's a bandit. It's exactly the kind of place where high-rank goods change hands with no questions asked, and exactly the kind of place where a fancy Earth rank scroll going up for sale draws every killer for 100 miles. Which is why I sent the one guy who can't be caught. Shade has a movement art that even a 9-star expert couldn't pin down. If it goes bad, he just walks into a shadow and is gone. Yes, master, and my problem left the room. While he was away, I put the loophole aside and got greedy in the other direction. I still had that 5th grade pill and the heaven rank scripture, so I ate the pill. Terrible idea for a body as weak as mine. A 5th grade pill is an ocean of energy poured into a teacup, but my heaven-swallowing body drinks oceans for breakfast, so instead of exploding, I just leveled. And leveled, and leveled. One night, 1-star practitioner to 5-star. Skipped 4 ranks like they weren't there, and that only burned a third of the pill. You ever hit a leveling groove in a game so smooth you forget to eat, forget to sleep, forget your own name? That's what this pill was. That's literally how I died last time, and here I was doing it again. Except now the addiction pays out in actual power. 3 days later, I'd chewed through the whole pill and slammed straight into Doughmaster. 3 days, from nobody to Doughmaster. If that got out, it would break every scholar's brain on the continent. Now, I said, cracking my knuckles, I can at least protect myself. Then I opened the heaven rank scripture, and it opened me. The scroll yanked all my fighting energy into itself and jammed 10,000 years of information straight through my skull. For a second, I was inside a stampede of a million beasts, getting trampled into paste. Fun, 10 out of 10. Would not recommend the welcome package. But when it settled, I understood it. The myriad beast true scripture. You refine the blood of demonic beasts to steal their power and forge your body into a monster's. 10 kinds of beast blood, first layer, 100, second, 1,000, third, 10,000, and you become the body of all beasts. The genius who wrote it was a 9-star god at his peak. He refined the blood of every top monster on the whole continent. Dragons, phoenixes, the works. And he still couldn't finish the fourth layer. Ran out of strong enough blood. The continent's monsters just weren't good enough. And I sat there and I started to grin. Because I own a machine that turns things into better things. So if I feed a dragon's blood into my auction and trigger a 10,000-fold return, what comes out the other side? Blood better than a dragon's. Blood that doesn't exist in this world. The scripture that a god couldn't finish, I could finish it. With the slot machine. That's not adding wings to a tiger. That's handing the tiger a nuclear reactor. Way too early for dragon blood, obviously. Right now, I couldn't get third-tier monster blood, let alone the good stuff. First things first, get strong. Everything else follows. Then Shade came back, and he did not come back empty. Turns out, the loophole works. The ice sword and the palm scroll sold in the Black Corner region for a stack of goods, and none of it counted as system rewards, which meant every single piece was fresh ammo for my next auction. My infinite money glitch had a green light. I nearly did a lap around the room, but I wasn't the only one scheming in this building. Down in a quiet courtyard, my problems were compounding interest. There's an old man attached to my auction house. Elder Jin, a second-grade alchemist, which in a town this small makes him a genuine big deal, the kind nobody offends. He raised Mei Lin like a daughter. He'd heard I moved the next auction to 2 weeks instead of a month, and he was furious on her behalf. "This is nonsense," he snapped, face going dark. "How do we prepare enough lots in half that time? He's setting her up to fail." He stood up to go march over and confront the reckless rich kid personally. Mei Lin grabbed his sleeve, panicking, because she'd figured out something the old man hadn't. Offending me was the last thing she could afford. "Please," she said. "Just help me one more time." The old man sighed the sigh of every man who's ever lost an argument to a stubborn woman he loves, and he went to go refine her a pill instead. Neither of them knew the truth yet, that the reckless rich kid wasn't setting her up. He was about to hand her a machine that eats the world. Now, about that furious old alchemist. Elder Jin came to see me a few days later, and he came ready for a fight. Mei Lin dragged him along, sweating the whole way, because she was sure this was going to end with her career on fire. The old man puffed himself up. Second-grade alchemist. Big shot. He opened his mouth to lecture the reckless child about the sanctity of the auction schedule, and I just handed him a foundation establishment pill and a third-tier demon core to inspect. Casual, like passing the salt. His mouth closed, slowly. See, he came in assuming I was a spoiled brat playing with a business he'd spent years building. Then he watched me produce treasures that a town this size shouldn't have, like I was pulling coins from behind a kid's ear. The lecture died in his throat. The dark look on his face went the specific shade of a man realizing he walked into the wrong room to yell. "Young lord," he said, and the whole register had changed. It was my request that was unreasonable. Please forgive me. From marching over to burn me down to apologizing in under a minute. I love this job. And Mei Lin, standing behind him, watched the ground shift under her feet. She'd bet everything on obeying me. Turns out she'd bet on the house. So we ran the second auction 2 weeks later, and this time I salted the lots myself, using the loophole goods and a few things I picked out. Bigger crowd, even more packed than before. Every power in town had heard the Etheria house was cooking. I took my private box, sat back, cranked the machine, foundation pill goes up. Ding! 10,000-fold. A 6th-grade fortune golden pill. Only one man in the whole empire can even refine a 6th-grade pill, and I just got one for selling a starter potion. Third-tier demon core goes up. Ding! 10,000-fold. A 7th-tier heavenly poison scorpion dragon core. 7th tier. The pressure rolling off that thing nearly pinned me to my chair. And a little bell went off in my memory. In the original novel, a certain white-haired poison girl needed exactly this core to condense her poison pill someday. Filed that away. Never know when a plot item pays rent. A yellow rank technique goes up. Ding. Earth rank technique out. Then the grand finale. A genuine third-grade chi-gathering pill. The kind that can shove a 9-star master straight into a whole new realm. The 3 great families lost their minds again. Li Feng, head of the Li family, spent like the gold was on fire and walked away the winner. Ding. 10,000-fold return. 7th-grade yin-yang barrier breaking pill. I stopped breathing for a second. A 7th-grade pill. That one pill is enough raw material to build a dozong expert from scratch. I got it for auctioning a pill that a guy was going to eat and forget about. 2 auctions in. My storage space looked like a dragon's hoard threw up. But here's the part I actually care about. Li Feng winning that chi-gathering pill wasn't luck. It was me. I tipped him off which lot to fight for, because Li Feng is the father of a certain kid, and I was about to go meet that kid in person. 3 days later, an invitation came. The Li family annual test for the younger generation. Come watch the babies show off their power. And I said yes, because I knew exactly which baby I wanted to see. Ren Han, the actual protagonist of this whole world. The kid the story is supposed to be about. And on the day I met him, the story was busy grinding him into the dirt. I walked into the Li family training ground in white, and the reaction told me everything. The clan head and all the elders scrambled off their high platform to bow at me like I was made of gold. Which, family-wise, I sort of am. They sat me up top in the seat of honor next to the bigwigs. And 2 of those bigwigs immediately started started doing the single most bizarre thing I have ever witnessed. The Lee family's two silly elders, Grand Elder and Second Elder. The instant they noticed me glance at a pretty girl in the crowd, some gear turned in their heads, and they decided, right there, that I was going to marry into the family. They started pitching me their niece, Lee Mei, like used car salesmen. She admires you so much, young Master Kalen Kai. I could introduce you, if you're willing. I glanced, one time, at one girl. And these two had already picked out names for our children. I coughed and stalled. Elders, let's, watch the test first, trying to politely climb out the window. And these geniuses heard "not now" as "yes, but I'm shy." They exchanged a smug little look. In their heads, I hadn't refused, which meant I'd agreed. If I'd known what was happening in their brains, I'd have thrown myself off the platform. Down below, the test began. A big black stone that measures your power. 7th Dan and up, you pass. Anything less, you fail in public in front of the rich guest. Kid after kid stepped up. 5th Dan, fail. 6th Dan, fail. The elders' faces curdled. Li Feng sat there dying of secondhand embarrassment, apologizing to me every 10 seconds for the family's dud lineup. Then the tester called a name that changed the whole air in the yard. Ren Han. Every single kid in that crowd turned to smirk. This was the moment they'd been waiting for, the daily public flogging of the family joke. And there he was, black shirt, standing alone in a corner like he'd been quarantined. 15, same age as me, same origin as me actually. Another kid from Earth, dropped into this world. My countryman, technically. He walked to the stone with his face flat and pressed his hand to it. Ren Han, Do Chi, 3rd rank, low level, fail. The yard erupted, not with surprise, with glee. Same spot as last year, the trash. Outsiders here today and he disgraces the whole family. If he weren't the clan head's son, they'd have thrown him out years ago. And the kid just stood there, clenched his fist so hard his own nails cut his palm, and he didn't even flinch. Bitter little smile on his face. 3 years of this. 3 years of being the strongest genius on the continent's punching bag. Up on the platform, his father's face cracked with heartache. But a clan head can't openly protect the family failure, so Li Feng sat there and ate it too. And I watched, and honestly, I was impressed, because I know how this story ends. This kid claws his way from 3rd-rank trash to Emperor of the Sky. And the reason isn't just the mysterious old man who'll wake up in his ring soon. It's this exact moment. The kid who can stand in a storm of laughter with a knife in his own palm and not break. That heart is the real cheat code. You can't devour your way into that. You either have it or you don't. If I'd been dealt his hand, I'd have folded years ago. He didn't. Maybe, I thought, watching him, I'll give my countryman a hand. Then the tester called the next name, and the yard went dead silent all over again. Different silence this time, the reverent kind. Ren Xing'er. A girl in purple stepped forward, calm as still water, and every boy in the yard forgot how to breathe. If the poison girl I mentioned is a fine blade, this one was a lotus opening at dawn, the female lead. And even I, sitting up there sighing over Mei Lin 10 minutes ago, had to admit the story cast its leads well. She tested high, obviously. Standing beside Ren Han the whole time, quietly, on his side when the entire yard wasn't. Ah, I sighed inwardly, looking at the two of them. What a pity, because I knew a secret about that girl that even she didn't know yet. But that's a plot thread for a much later day. For now, I had my own moves to make. I'd seen what I came to see. Ren Han was exactly the kid the book promised. Down but not broken. Worth a small investment. And I had just the thing sitting in my storage, gathering dust. After the test, I caught Ren Han alone. I didn't lecture him. I didn't monologue. I just handed him a couple of lotus seeds. Told him they were medicine. Told him to eat them. And told him something true that would sound insane. That his talent wasn't gone. That it would come back. He looked at me like I was one more person about to laugh at him. This world's full of wonders, Brother Lee, I said. Once you're strong enough, you'll stop being surprised. Then I let him leave, because I knew what those seeds would do, and I wanted him to find out on his own. He ran home, locked his door, and swallowed them. The medicine spread through him warm and gentle. His old injuries, the ones a bully named Jiang Wuren gave him, healed clean. And then, heart pounding, he sat down and pulled at the doqi in the air. It came. It stayed. It didn't leak away like it had for 3 miserable years. It hasn't disappeared, he whispered, and his voice shook. My doqi hasn't disappeared. He sat there stretching, drunk on a feeling he thought he'd lost forever. 3 years of being called trash, gone in one bite. From now on, he said to his empty room, I, Ren Han, am no longer trash. He thought a rich stranger had done him a random kindness. He had no idea he'd just been handed a down payment by a guy playing a very long game. I wasn't being a saint. I was recruiting the future ruler of the world before he knew he was for sale. Meanwhile, I had a bigger fish swimming right under my own roof, and I hadn't even noticed him yet. His name was Elder Long Feng. On paper, he's just the grand elder of my family. Aloof old man, ice-type fighter, keeps to himself. But something itched at me, and when I chased the memory down, my brain lit up like a jackpot. Elder Long Feng is the Ice Emperor, one of the 10 strongest men of the previous generation in this whole empire. In his prime, he stood toe-to-toe with monsters and didn't blink. In the original story, he got his power sealed down to almost nothing by a certain Snake Queen, got forgotten by history, and eventually became one of Ren Han's most loyal free henchmen after the kid removed the seal. And he's sitting in my family, right now, as an elder. So do the math with me. If I can get to Elder Long Feng, and if I can offer him something worth his loyalty, then I don't just have one Do Huang in my pocket. I have two, my Shadow Assassin and an Emperor. The story handed Ren Han the Ice Emperor for free. I intended to steal that delivery before it arrived, but Elder Long Feng was a problem for later, because he was somewhere far away being sealed and grumpy. What I needed first was strength I could actually reach for, and I knew exactly where to farm it, the Magical Beast Mountain Range. A whole mountain range stuffed wall to wall with demonic beasts, which for a normal person means death. For a guy carrying the Myriad Beast True Scripture, it means an all-you-can-eat blood buffet. Every monster I kill, I refine, I get stronger, I climb toward the second layer. And there was a bonus. Deep in that range, the original novel mentioned a hidden vault, a treasure trove left by some old master, packed with goodies, a rare flying technique, a poison scripture that a whole sect of poisoners would kill for. There was just one catch. To find the vault, I needed a certain girl, a doctor from a little town on the mountain's edge. White hair, purple eyes, quiet legend of the region, the Whispering Bloom. In the novel, she's a tragic early character who grows into a monster of a poison master, the kind who can wipe out an army just by being touched. She's the one who needed that 7th tier poison core I'd already stashed. If I could win her over now, before the story got its hands on her, I'd have a walking apocalypse on my team. Plus, and I'll be honest, I'd been a fan of hers since I read the book on Earth. I wanted to see if she was as stunning in person as the pages promised, so I told Shade to break through as fast as he could, told him to gear up, told him we were leaving for the mountain, because the plan was coming together. Farm the beasts, find the vault, win the poison goddess, loop the auctions, steal the Ice Emperor, bank the future emperor. And nobody in this world had the faintest idea the side character had turned into the player. The mountain sits behind a little place called Qingshan Town, Monster Town, the locals call it, because it's the last stop before the range eats you. I rolled in looking for one thing, the Whispering Bloom. And since half the town worshipped her, I figured directions would be easy. They were. I grabbed a passing merchant, asked which trail her herb-gathering group took up the mountain, and he pointed me right. No secret, everyone loves the doctor. What I didn't clock was the young man dressed as a merchant standing behind me. The second I said her name, his eyes went cold. Turns out saying Whispering Bloom out loud in that town marks you. This guy, Wei Feng, ran with the Wolfhead mercenary group, and the Wolfheads had their own ugly interest in her. He decided I was competition, or a witness, or just an easy kill. Either way, he smiled at me with a knife behind it. Killing you is very simple, he said. Bless him, genuinely. He looked at a 15-year-old and saw prey. I hit him with mountain-splitting palm. One palm. Him and his little crew were paced before they understood the gap in strength. No back and forth, no monologue. Just a very confident man and then a stain. Here's the thing I didn't know while I was wiping my hands. Wei Feng wasn't a nobody. Wei Feng was the son of Wei Dragon, the leader of the whole Wolfhead mercenary group. And a father who just lost his only son is the exact wrong kind of problem to leave breathing behind you. Back in town, Wei Dragon got the news and completely came apart. Slammed a table into splinters, roared until his voice cracked. Who did this? Who dares kill my son? I'll tear him to pieces. He gave his men one day to find the boy in white who walked into the mountain and never came out. Guard every exit. Alive or dead, drag him back. So while I was hunting monsters, a grief-mad mercenary boss was hunting me. Filed under, deal with later. I went up the mountain and started farming. Beasts died, blood went in the tub. I climbed. By now I moved like a smear of ink, 3 fakes for every real step, the shadow art I'd stolen off Shade. Most monsters couldn't find the real me before a palm strike found them. But the trip wasn't all shopping. Because somewhere on that mountain, I thought I'd already lost the whole reason I came. I ran into a survivor from the doctor's group, panicked, bloody, half a sentence at a time. A pack of bloodthirsty demonic wolves had ambushed them, and the doctor, the white-haired girl, was still in there. In danger, maybe already dead. My stomach dropped through the mountain. I don't care about strangers' lives, I'll be honest with you. But the doctor absolutely could not die. Without her, no vault. Without her, no poison goddess on my team. And fine, under all the scheming, there was a second thing. I'd been a fan since Earth. The thought of her getting torn apart by wolves felt genuinely wrong. I threw the whole careful plan out the window. Shade, I snapped at the shadow, forgetting to even hide him. Go, find a girl in white named Whispering Bloom. You save her. That's an order. And then I ran too. When I got to the ambush site, there was nothing left worth finding. Just wolf corpses, and the leftovers a wolf pack makes of people. No survivors. My shadow had arrived too late and killed the rest, but the girl in white was nowhere. I stood in the blood and felt something cold crawl up my spine. She's a major character, I told myself. She doesn't just die like this, but I knew the ugly truth too. I'd changed things. My arrival was a stone in a pond, and the ripples went places the story never planned. Maybe the doctor was dead precisely because I showed up. Maybe I deleted my own goddess by accident. If that was true, I was going to be sick about it for a long time. The grief did something to me, honestly. I stopped being careful. I tore through that mountain, killing everything with a pulse. And the blood soaked in until my whole personality shifted a few degrees darker. A frost unicorn wolf, fast as anything, tried to run. I ran it down in the trees and folded it with a palm strike mid-stride. And then, chasing it, I found a cave. And in the cave, tucked into a crack in the rock, was a shape hiding from a monster that owned the place. A girl, white hair, hiding in a crevice, praying whatever ape ruled this cave wouldn't notice her. I didn't dare hope. Whispering Bloom flashed through my head. How could she possibly be here, this deep, in the third-tier beast zone? There was one problem between me and finding out. The monster she was hiding from. A fierce ape, king of the magical beast mountain range. Over 3 meters of muscle, scarlet eyes, a mouth that opened like a red canyon. Bigger and nastier than the leopard I'd just canceled. And it did not appreciate a human walking into its living room. This one didn't go down in a palm. This one was a fight. The ape came in swinging, claws aimed at my skull, killing intent gushing off it in waves. I threw every shadow I had. It swatted through them like curtains. I hit it with mountain-splitting palm, and it kept coming. Hit it again, and it roared, more furious than hurt. As the king of the whole range, it had never in its life been humiliated by something my size, and it took that personally. We wrecked the forest. It threw boulders that started as trees. I danced through a dozen phantoms and carved palm strike after palm strike into its hide. My arm split open, blood down the shoulder. The thing just would not fall. If this goes on, I admitted to myself, breathing hard, I might not be the one who wins. I'd emptied the tank, every technique I owned, spent, and the ape was still standing. So I stopped trying to outmuscle a monster and outthought it instead. I flooded the space with shadows, hundreds of steps of fakes, until the ape couldn't tell paint from person, and while it swung at ghosts, I lined up the one strike that mattered and drove it home where it counted. The king of the mountain finally went down. Barely. If that ape had a little more left in the tank, you'd be reading a very different story. But it didn't, and I did. I climbed down into the crevice, and there she was. Really her. White hair, purple eyes. And the second she saw a bloody teenager grinning at her like he'd won the lottery, she took a careful step back. Because she thought I was a crazed superfan. Which, fair, she has those. They terrify her. And I'd just come sprinting in, vibrating with joy. Which is exactly the energy of a man about to ask for an autograph in blood. I got a grip on myself, played it cool, explained that everyone in her town knows her name, that's all. She relaxed a little. Kaylin Kai, I told her when she asked. And she looked me over again, clocking the storage ring, the strength, the clothes, doing the math on whether I came from money. Then she made me an offer. Get her off this mountain alive, and she'd tell me a secret. A treasure trove she'd found. A vault left by some old master that she couldn't open alone. Split it 50-50. I almost laughed. I'd been lying awake scheming how to pry that exact location out of her, and she just handed it to me to be polite. So you agree? She asked, when I didn't answer fast enough. I agreed. There was more to those days in the cave than a handshake. A dying eagle, a fire, a girl who cooks like a legend. I'll come back to it because it's the part that actually changed something in me. And right now, I've got an ambush to walk into. Because down in town, the scheme I'd forgotten about was sharpening a knife with my name on it. Waydragon had his men fanning out across every exit of the mountain. Guard them all, he'd ordered, table in splinters. The boy in white murdered his son, and a father with nothing left to lose was waiting at the bottom of the only road home. I went up that mountain to farm blood and win a goddess. I was going to come down into an ambush. Let me tell you how the ambush went. I came down the mountain, walked toward the town exit, and there they were. Dozens of wolf heads, weapons out, murder in their eyes, and out front, the grieving father himself, Waydragon. I was honestly a little confused. Hadn't I already killed everyone who saw me? How'd they connect the dots? Then I decided I didn't care. It's a mercenary group. What's a mercenary group? Boy, Waydragon hissed. Did you kill my son, Wei Fong? I've killed a lot of people, I said. Which one's your son? That did not help his mood. He explained. His boy followed me up the mountain and never came back. Oh, right, I said. When I went up, I think I stepped on a few cats and dogs. They were wearing clothes like yours. Cruel? Sure. But this man came to kill me over a son who came to kill me first. I was fresh out of sympathy. Waydragon's killing intent went solid enough to chew. He pointed at me, face twisting into something ugly. No matter who you are, you die today. All of you. Charge. Kill him. They charged. One earth-splitting palm. That's it. Dozens of men, one palm print, and the whole front line just stopped existing in a cloud of dust. Even Way Dragon, standing safe in the back, got knocked pale and stumbling by the shockwave alone. And before he could turn to run, I let the leopard's gift loose. A bolt of lightning shot out of my hand and hit him dead center. One scream, and the grieving father was a charcoal statue with wide eyes. Down he went, life leaking out into the rubble. The Wolfheads had bullied that town for years. Nobody was going to miss them. 0 out of 10. Would not recommend hunting the guy who eats monsters for breakfast. Oh, and while I was down there in the mountain, I picked up something extra. Chasing a scent through a waterfall, I found an azure lotus growing in a hidden pool, guarded, of course, by a giant blue python the size of a small building. Everything precious on this continent has a monster babysitting it. It roared, told me to get off its lawn, threw a 10-foot column of water at my head. I split into shadows, appeared over its skull, and dropped a palm strike straight down like a meteor. Skull shattered, blood painted the sky, and I plucked the lotus, which, funny thing, calmed the violent energy roiling in me the second I touched it. Its seeds alone were worth a fortune, worth more as a gift, someday, to a certain kid trying to heal. Into the ring it went, along with the python's corpse, because I don't waste blood. That night, I ran the myriad beast scripture, climbed into a tub full of monster blood, which is exactly as gross as it sounds, and let the violent energy tear through me while I refined it. The scripture's whole method is basically self-harm with extra steps. So my willpower had gotten diamond hard from all the practice. 3 hours later, I condensed my 10th blood aperture, opened my eyes crimson, and awakened the first layer, the magical beast body. Done. Then I called Shade, and we went home. Back at the auction house, I called in Mei Lin and Elder Jin, and I got a very pleasant surprise. Elder Jin had broken through. 3rd grade alchemist. Overnight, basically, because I'd tossed him a 5th grade alchemist's notebook I had lying around like it was a coupon. The old man who'd stormed in ready to yell at me 2 weeks ago now bowed and swore he'd serve me to the death. That inside this family, he'd only ever answer to me. Clan head's orders be damned. And Mei Lin, watching him, made up her mind out loud too. Mei Lin is also willing to follow the young lord to the death and never betray him. 2 weeks, one machine, and the 2 most capable people in the building had gone from bracing against me to bleeding for me. Mei Lin showed me exactly how far that loyalty went not long after, when she came by one night with wine and no chaperone. Some things a gentleman keeps to himself. I'll only say the Golden Dove decided to stop being just my auctioneer, and I stopped pretending I hadn't already claimed her in my head weeks ago. Anyway, wine, romance, world domination, a balanced life. But here's where things really opened up, because so far I'd been playing in a sandbox. 1 town, 1 auction house, 3 families too broke to matter, and a town that's small has a ceiling on it. Mei Lin could gather a 3rd grade pill in 2 weeks, sure, but a town like this was never going to feed a machine like mine forever. So I told her the plan. After this run, I was heading back toward the capital, and I asked, would the Golden Dove come with me to build something bigger? The answer was yes before I finished the question. And on the way to the big leagues, I decided to take the scenic route through a place worth robbing, Black Rock City, one of the top cities in the whole empire, not some backwater. A city with real auction houses, real families, and a real alchemist guild. A bigger sandbox for a bigger scam. I rolled in low-key, checked into an inn called the Rock Moon Tower, and got to work. And the first order of business was recruitment, Shade style. There's a local heavy hitter in Black Rock City, the Lee family. Old, rich, powerful. So that night, my shadow paid the Lee family head a visit. The old man woke up to a light in his room, and there sat Shade, at the table, sipping the family's own wine like he'd been invited. The head opened his mouth to scream for the guards. Hey, 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 stop yelling, Shade said and pointed at the corner. They're all over there. More than a dozen bodies. Every guard, every family expert, stacked in the corner like firewood. Silent. Not one of them had made a sound. The Lee family head went the color of the moon. This man had wiped out his entire security detail without waking a single servant. Escape wasn't on the table. Nothing was on the table except the table, which was starting to look like a coffin. Has my family offended you? The old man asked, going for dignity. At least tell me why, so I die knowing. Shade set down the wine. Simple. My master says if you submit, you all live. The head nearly fell over. This terrifying ghost had a master. Someone stronger than this? He submitted. Of course he submitted. What was the alternative? Join the firewood? Good, Shade said. I like a man who reads the room. We'll come take over tomorrow night. Don't do anything clever. And he was gone. And the old man collapsed onto his bed, powerless, wondering how he'd just lost a business his family built over generations to a guy who never told him a single name. That's my customer service. One visit and a whole family is a subsidiary. But the Lee family wasn't even the reason I came to Black Rock City. That was just Tuesday. What I actually wanted was on the other side of town, behind a very fancy door, the Alchemist Guild. On this continent, alchemists sit near the top of the whole food chain. People bow to the plaque on the guild wall, and the guards at the door don't let you in without a sponsor's letter, which, naturally, I didn't have. But I did have a party trick. I walked up, the guards moved to stop me, and I opened my palm. Out came a wisp of purple flame. Solid, condensed real fire, the kind only a 4th grade alchemist can conjure. The guards' faces fell off. Condensed real fire, a 4th grade alchemist, a horrified whisper, because they knew exactly what that meant. and it was standing in front of them wearing the face of a kid barely out of childhood. A crowd gathered, gasps rippled out the door, and I stood there and casually admitted I wasn't even really a fourth-grade alchemist, just able to fake the fire for special reasons, which somehow made it worse. Yes, sir, please, come in, the guards stammered, bowing like their spines had been replaced with hinges. Honestly, exhausting. You conjure one nightmare flame and suddenly you can't get through a door without a whole performance. I stepped inside the most exclusive building in one of the Empire's top cities, and every alchemist in the hall looked up at the kid who just spooked their front gate. And I hadn't even started yet, because Blackrock City was just the warm-up. The scam was scaling. New city, bigger families, a guild full of the continent's most respected profession, all of it about to learn that the polite young man asking questions owned a shadow that eats mansions and a system that eats the world. And I still had 2 people to collect before I went home. A broken girl in a desert who nobody had ever been kind to, and an emperor, frozen and forgotten, waiting to be thawed. Oh, and the protagonist came to my auction. I have to tell you about this because it's the funniest thing in the whole story. Remember Renhan, the trash kid from the family test, the one I slipped a couple of lotus seeds to? Well, they worked. His talent came roaring back. 3 years of being the family joke erased in one bite of a treasure I fished out of a monster's pond. So the next time I ran an auction in town, guess who showed up? Not as the family embarrassment, as a bidder. Standing tall, eyes clear, calling me Brother Kalen Kai like we were old friends. The future ruler of the entire world. In my auction house, waiting for me to tell him what to buy. And I did. I leaned over and tipped him which lot to fight for, which treasures were worth his family's gold that day. He listened, he bid, he won, and he thanked me, warm and grateful, the way you thank a mentor who's looking out for you. He had no idea that the mysterious young lord feeding him tips was pulling every one of those lots out of a machine. No idea the ice emperor he'd someday need was already thawing out in my pocket. No idea the poison goddess he was supposed to meet in a mountain cave had already cooked me dinner. No idea I was quietly holding every single prize the story had set aside with his name on it. Here's the thing about being the guy who read the book. I know Renhan's whole future. Every ally he's supposed to gain. Every treasure he's supposed to stumble on. Every lucky break the plot has scheduled for its favorite son. And I got to all of them first. The Emperor, the Poison Girl, the strange fires, the techniques. One by one, I walked up early and signed for the deliveries meant for him. And the beautiful part is, he doesn't even know he's losing. How could he? To him, nothing's missing. He's rising fast, life's finally good, and this nice older brother keeps handing him wins. He thinks he's the main character having a great year. He's actually a very happy man being gently robbed of his entire destiny by a guy who owns the store. And I don't even feel bad about it, because I'm not cruel to him. I gave him his talent back. I feed him good tips. I let the protagonist keep protagonisting in his little corner of the map, happy and clueless, while I take the parts of the story that actually matter. That's the whole cheat, one more time, and it's worth repeating. I'm not stronger than the hero. I'm not smarter than the plot. I just read the last page before anyone else got to the table, and I've been playing with the answers ever since. Renhan gets to be the story's favorite son. I get to be the guy who owns the story. Now, back to collecting the rest of it. Let me go back to that cave on the mountain because I rushed past the part that actually mattered. The poison girl, the whispering bloom. I told you I found her hiding in a crevice and cut a treasure deal. What I skipped was the 3 days after, when I stopped scheming for a while and just kept a couple of half-dead things alive. Her eagle was dying, Little Blue. The big bird had thrown itself between her and a wolf pack and gotten torn to ribbons for it, and it had been fading at the bottom of that crevice ever since. She wouldn't leave it, bit her lip bloody and swore she'd cure it, because that bird had saved her life more times than she could count. I carried it up out of the crevice for her, laid it by the fire, and I watched a legend work. Her hands. That's the thing the whole continent whispers about, and now I got to see why. Quiet, sure, tireless. She ground herbs by firelight and packed the eagle's wounds and murmured to it like it could hear her. And slowly, breath by breath, the bird stopped dying. I sat in the corner eating a magic core to top myself off, and I stopped thinking about the vault and the plan and the poison body she'd grow into. I just watched a girl refuse to let a wounded bird go. I get why the story loved her. She asked me, embarrassed, if I had any meat. Not for herself, for the eagle. It was healing on an empty stomach and she was worried. I didn't have any. So I told her I'd go kill something big tomorrow and we'd all eat properly. And her whole tired face lit up like I'd promised her the moon. She hadn't eaten in days either. She'd been saving her worry for a bird. Next morning I went hunting, and the mountain sent a purple lightning leopard to make it interesting. Rare thing. Lightning horn, fast enough that most fighters can't track it, drops out of the sky like a meteor. It came for my skull and found a dozen shadows instead. I stepped once, split into ghosts it couldn't read, and drove a palm straight through it. Horn cracked, lightning fizzled, and a body the size of a bus went down in the trees. Groceries. And a lightning trick I'd use later to turn a grieving mercenary boss into charcoal. But that's a different day. I came back with dinner and a graze on my shoulder, and she gasped like I'd lost the whole arm, fussed over a scratch. Then she cooked, and I found out the other legend about her is true. The woman can cook. Deep in a monster-infested mountain, in a dead ape's cave over a scavenged fire, she turned a lightning leopard into the best meal I'd had since I fell into this world. The eagle ate. She ate. I ate too much. For a night, the deadliest poison prodigy on the continent was just a girl making sure everyone at her fire went to sleep full. That's when I really decided. Not the scheme version where she's a walking apocalypse I'm recruiting before the plot can. The other version. This one stays close. We held up our end of the deal too, found the treasure trove, the vault an old master left behind, and split it clean. I walked out with a rare flying technique, the kind of thing sects go to war over. She walked out with a poison scripture. That poison scripture is her whole destiny. It's the thing that turns a small-town doctor into the most feared poison master alive, the woman whose touch is death, the one every dark force will someday hunt. I handed the manual for becoming an apocalypse to the gentlest person I'd met in this world, and she thanked me with a smile. She left with my trust, and honestly, a chunk of hers. She even ended up holding my identity token, which caused me a very stupid argument with my own front gate later, but we'll get there. The point is this. The story planned to grind her down slow, a tragic early character who suffers for 100 chapters before her luck turns. I got to her first. I got to her in a firelit cave while she saved a bird, and I made sure her luck turned early. That's the difference between reading a story and living inside one. When you already know who gets hurt, you get to decide not to let it happen. Now, back to the bigger game and the cities I was about to quietly rob blind. Let me back up and tell you how I ended up with the king of the mountain running my errands. Because that happened, and it's ridiculous. Deep in the magical beast mountain range, past the fierce ape, past the python, there's a real apex predator. The amethyst-winged lion king. A Do Wong tier beast, purple-winged, the actual ruler of the whole range. The kind of monster that eats everything else on the mountain and calls it a snack. And it had a son, a little cub. Now, fighting a Do Wong lion head-on is a good way to become a smear. It outclassed me raw. Wings that stir storms, claws that split stone, a bloodline flame in its veins. If it caught me clean, I was paced. So I didn't fight it clean. I went for the cub first. Cruel? Maybe. Effective? Completely. I got my hands on the little one and kept it very much alive, and I made sure the king saw exactly whose hands its baby was in. The mountain shook when it realized. The king came down like a purple avalanche, all rage, ready to tear the trespasser into confetti. And I stood there, small and calm, holding the one thing in the world it couldn't afford to lose. I didn't threaten. I didn't have to. I just let a father look at his son in a stranger's grip and do the math no parent can refuse. The avalanche stopped. The roar died in its throat, and the king of the whole range, a beast that had eaten everything on that mountain and feared nothing, slowly lowered its head. Don't worry, it grumbled, defeated. I'll take good care of my son. I even healed the cub afterward, poured a rare crystal source down its throat, and watched its wounds knit shut, because a hostage you keep healthy is a hostage that keeps a king polite. And a king who trusts you to keep his child alive is a king who stops looking for the exit. So now I had a Do Huang lion running deliveries. First thing I had it do? Go collect every treasure on the mountain it used to rule. It's the king, knows where everything is. Came back with a storage ring stuffed with rare herbs and magic cores, a whole apothecary's worth. I went from worrying about supplies to drowning in them. And the lion gave me something better than errands. Its bloodline carries a purple flame. I devoured it, refined it, and now I can conjure real fire from my palm. That's the party trick I spooked the Alchemist Guild with. A normal alchemist can't summon real fire until 4th grade, and they need a whole medicine cauldron to do it. I do it with a finger snap, and mine burns hotter than theirs. Because somewhere in all this, I'd also picked up a pill emperor's inheritance. Full alchemy knowledge, poured straight into my skull. All I lacked was practice, and now I had a mountain of herbs to practice on. So on top of everything else, I started leveling a second class, alchemist. Because why be one broken thing when you can be two? Riveting lifestyle, honestly. Farm blood by day, refine pills by night, snap purple fire at door guards for fun. So when I hit Blackrock City, I wasn't just there to annex the Lee family and scare a guild. I was there to run an auction, a real one, in a real city, with real money, in front of families who could actually afford the good stuff. And this is where the machine got scary. Back in that little town, I fed it garbage and got treasures. Now I fed it treasures and got the kind of thing that starts continental incidents. Every lot I put up came back multiplied into something rarer, and I fed the returns back in. And fed those back in, the snowball rolling downhill exactly like I'd dreamed, getting fatter with every single turn. I wasn't running an auction house anymore. I was running a laundromat that washes cheap things into legendary ones. And I owned every machine in the building. By the time I was done in Blackrock City, my storage looked less like a young lord's savings and more like the vault of a dynasty. Spirit medicines, high-rank techniques, enough alchemy material to shove me toward 4th grade, then 5th. And a shopping list, because I'd set my sights on something absurd, a strange fire. On this continent, a strange fire is the holy grail. The ultimate prize every alchemist dreams of, and most of them die chasing. Because these flames are as likely to burn you to ash as serve you. Control one, and you're not a good alchemist, you're a legend. The world ranks them, and men have died just trying to be near the low ones. I wanted one. Specifically, I had my eye on a flame the system was dangling, the tie-in divine flame. And to refine it, I needed a short list of rare materials, one of which, conveniently, sat somewhere in a place called Mo City. So, Mo City is where I went next. And Mo City is where I ran into a grumpy old man in a map shop who was about to change my whole endgame. I needed a desert map. The Tagore Desert, the one crawling with snake people, is a nightmare to cross without knowing the terrain, and I had a torn map fragment, half of one. And I'd heard the other half belonged to a cartographer in Mo City. His shop was quiet. He didn't even look up when I came in, just an old voice telling me the goods were on the counter. Pick something myself. Rude. I figured this guy couldn't sell water in a desert. What I didn't know was that his maps were the most accurate in the entire city. Every route walked personally, every landmark true. This wasn't some hack. This was a man who'd crossed that desert more times than anyone alive. I asked for the most detailed map he had, and then, casually, I mentioned the fragment in my hand. His brush trembled. The line he was drawing slid off course. He looked up, really looked this time, and when his cloudy old eyes landed on my torn map fragment, something flickered in them. Recognition. He asked, too flat, too careful, where I'd gotten a fragment like that. The desert, I said. Fine. He didn't want to sell his half. Not for sale, he said, and went back to his map like the conversation was over. I'd expected that, so I pushed. Then I'll just have to buy it, I said, cold. He chuckled at me. Young kid, big mouth, told me not to even think about robbing him. It wouldn't end well for me. Waved me off like a fly. And I looked right at him and said the thing that snapped his brush in half. You're right. I really shouldn't rob someone who might once have been a Do Huang expert. Crack. The brush broke in his hand. The door slammed shut on its own. A wave of ice-cold aura crashed down on me, freezing and ancient and furious, the kind of pressure that flattens ordinary men where they stand. I didn't get flattened. A dark shell flickered up around me, a mystic tortoise phantom, and held his aura off me like an umbrella in a storm. And that stopped him cold. His pupils shrank, because a kid barely out of childhood had just tanked the full weight of a fallen emperor's aura and smiled about it. Here's what I knew, standing in that little shop, that he didn't know I knew. This grumpy old map seller was Elder Long Feng, the Ice Emperor. One of the 10 strongest men of the last generation, sealed by a snake queen decades ago, drained down to a shadow of himself, hiding in a nowhere city drawing maps because the world had forgotten him. The same Elder Long Feng who, in the story I read, becomes the future emperor's most loyal blade. And he had no idea who I was, which was perfect, because he's also, on paper, the grand elder of my own family. If I'd walked in and said, "Hi, uncle," he'd have been polite and useless. But if I could impress him as a stranger first, show him strength and vision and trump cards before he ever learned my name, then the day he finally realized what I was, his loyalty would be total. So I played it as a stranger. Smiled, backed off the threat, told the old man I meant nothing by it. I just really, really wanted that map fragment, and I'd trade him anything he named for it. He refused, flat, his white hair drifting in a wind that wasn't there. Stubborn old iceberg. But I'd already seen the flicker in his eyes. He was a legend rotting in a map shop, and I was a kid who could hold off his aura and talk about Do Huang like it was small talk. He was curious now. And curiosity, in a forgotten emperor, is the first crack in the ice. I filed him away, because I couldn't offer him the one thing that would actually buy him yet, his freedom from the seal. And I had a hunch about where the key to that seal was hiding, out in the desert he'd mapped so carefully, the snake queen who ruined him. I just had to go into the sand and take her. Now let me tell you about my side hustle, because while all this was happening, I was quietly becoming an alchemist, too. Remember that Pill Emperor inheritance I mentioned? Full alchemy knowledge jammed into my skull, zero practice. So the day I spooked the Alchemist Guild door with my purple fire, I didn't just barge in to show off. I registered. They tested me, and I passed as a second-grade alchemist on the spot. The two old men running the place, Reginald and Alistair, looked at a kid barely out of childhood, conjuring real fire, and nearly swallowed their beards. Then they handed me the robe. An alchemist's robe isn't clothing, it's a flex, soaked in a medicine pool before it's woven, keeps you awake, sharpens your skin so you can feel the heat while refining, shrugs off poisons, tougher than armor. Costs 1 million gold to make, which is why armies can't afford to issue them. I put it on and it felt like slipping into cool water. And for 1 second I thought, what would I get if I auctioned this? Then I stopped myself. Auction a guild robe? That's the kind of insult that gets a man hunted by every alchemist on the continent. Some lines even I don't cross. That week, Reginald pulled me into his study for the polite interrogation. Who's your teacher? Where'd the purple fire come from? I had my lies ready. My teacher was a recluse named Venerable Shen Xuan. No guild record. Sworn me to secrecy. The purple flame? A gift from my teacher, who prided off the amethyst-winged lion king. Both lies. Both airtight. And watch what those lies did to their heads. A teacher who's a hidden expert. A teacher who can rip a strange flame off a Do Huang beast, which means the teacher is probably a Do Huang and an alchemist. The two old men traded a look, and I could see the math running. Whoever trained this kid is a monster, and this kid is going to shake the whole empire someday. I invented a legend, and they built the rest themselves. Chef's kiss. But I didn't come to the guild for a robe and a rumor. I came shopping, because I wanted a strange fire. Let me explain what that means, because it's the whole endgame. A strange fire is the holy grail of alchemy. There's a ranking of them, and men have died just standing near the low ones. Control one and you stop being a good alchemist and start being a name history remembers. Most who chase them burn to ash, moths and flames. And my system was dangling one in front of me, the tie-in divine flame. To refine it, I needed 3 specific things: a blood lotus pill, which needs a 5th grade alchemist to make, an ice spirit cold spring, and a spirit absorbing stone. So I asked Reginald and Alistair, all polite, if they knew anyone holding an ice spirit cold spring. Their faces did a thing. That's a natural treasure, kid, priceless, not for sale, and honestly, why would someone your strength even need it? I just smiled and said I really did need it, and I'd pay whatever made the owner happy. The vice president got up and shuffled into the back to check the records, because I'd read the book, and I already knew a lazy old crank named Old Man Tiber had one. And I knew he'd never see me if I knocked directly, so I had to route around him through the guild. That's the whole game, really. I know where everything is. I read the manual for this world before I got here. Every treasure, every hidden expert, every strange flame, I know the coordinates. All I have to do is be strong enough and rich enough to walk up and take them before the story hands them to the kid it's supposed to hand them to. And rich enough was never the problem, because the machine kept running. Every city I hit, I ran the auction. And in a real city with real families, the snowball got obscene. Feed in a good lot, pull out a great one. Feed the great one back in, pull out a legendary one. The whole hall bidding themselves hoarse over treasures I'd conjured out of garbage 2 auctions ago, none of them knowing they were the coins in a machine I owned. I walked out of Blackrock City with a hoard that would embarrass a dynasty and a shopping list for a god's flame. Meanwhile, the little burrowing beast in my arms was earning its snacks, because a strange fire doesn't only come from a system prize. The best ones hide in the world, and one of the nastiest sleeps under the desert. A green lotus core flame, buried deep in the earth, and I happen to own a beast that lives in dirt and tears holes through space for a living. 2 bottles of crystal source a day, that was the price, and my little drill went hunting the holy grail of alchemy underground while I sat up top drinking tea. Best employee I ever had, never complains, works for juice, digs up legendary fire. So stack it up. A guild badge and a fake genius teacher the whole guild is now afraid of. A robe worth a city block. A slot machine printing treasures across 3 cities. A god's flame on layaway. Ingredients being tracked down as we speak. And a squeaky beast mining a second strange fire out of the sand. I came to this world as a kid who couldn't light a candle. Now I was collecting the flames that burn down mountains, and I hadn't even broken a sweat. Let me actually walk you through one of these auctions, because reading the machine-printed treasure doesn't hit like watching it happen. Blackrock City, first real auction in a real city. I set up under a quiet name, took my private box, and let Mei Lin run the floor the way only she can, and the hall filled with people who thought they were the buyers. Sweet of them. Down in the front rows sat the local money, old families, fat rings, fatter egos. And one in particular, a big merchant type who'd bought his way up and never let anyone forget it. He'd heard some no-name house was setting up shop, and he came to sneer at it. New money smelling newer money. First lot went up. A decent pill, nothing wild. The bidding warmed, the merchant threw a lazy bid to remind the room he existed, and he won it. Ding! Auction successful. 10,000-fold return. Upstairs, I didn't even look. I just held out my hand for the prize. Something 3 tiers above what left the stage dropped into my space. The merchant thought he'd won a pill. He'd actually paid me to conjure a better one out of thin air. That's the joke of the whole night. Every proud bidder in that hall was a coin in a slot machine that only paid out to me. Second lot. Third. The prices climbed, the families got competitive, and the merchant decided this was his room to rule. He started spending big, snapping up the good lots, puffing up with every win. The crowd oohed. He preened. And every single time, the system leaned over and dropped something rarer into my box. Feed it a good lot, pull out a great one. Feed the great one back in next time, pull out a legendary one. The snowball rolling downhill, fattening with every turn, exactly like I dreamed on that first rooftop. Then the finale lot went up, and the merchant made his mistake. He won it, loud and smug, and then he decided to throw his weight around, started leaning on the house. Who runs this place? Where's the owner? Does this no-name outfit even know who he is? The classic script. The rich man who's decided the new shop needs to learn its manners. Mei Lin handled him with a smile that could freeze a river. Polite, immovable. And when he pushed harder, when he raised his voice at my auctioneer in my house, a shadow he never saw shifted in the rafters. I didn't need shade to do anything. That's the beauty of it. The merchant felt something. A cold weight settle on the back of his neck. A pressure with no source. The specific instinct that tells a small animal a much larger one is looking at it. His bluster died mid-sentence. His face went the color of old paper. And he suddenly remembered urgent business elsewhere. He walked out of my auction thinking he'd won the night. He'd spent a fortune to hand me a hoard, insulted my woman, felt a ghost breathe on his neck, and fled. 5 stars. Would let him bid again. By the time the hall emptied, my storage looked like a dynasty's vault had a stroke. Pills, techniques, materials, the raw fuel for a god's flame. All of it conjured out of other people's pride. And here's what none of them understood, sipping their wine, congratulating each other on their wins. They didn't lose to a richer man. There was no richer man. There was a kid in a box and a machine that turns their gold into my miracles. The house always wins. I just happened to be the house, the dealer, and the guy who rigged the table before anyone sat down. Next auction, they'd come back. They always come back. And I'd feed their winnings right back into the machine and pull out something that made the last treasure look like a party favor. Riveting business model, honestly. The customers pay me to rob them, then thank me on the way out. While all the fire and flash was happening, I was quietly doing the ugliest work of all. Feeding my own body to a scripture. Remember the beast manual? The one a god couldn't finish? First layer wants 10 kinds of monster blood. Second layer wants 100. So everywhere I went, mountain or sand, I hunted. Not for sport, for blood. Every beast a brick in a wall I was building out of my own bones. The hunts got meaner as I climbed. Small things dropped in a palm. Big things made me earn it. There was one, deep in the range, I still think about. On paper, it outclassed me. It came in fast and heavy, and for a bad minute, I was eating hits I couldn't fully block. But my whole trick is that I don't fight fair. I drown the air in shadows. The thing swings at ghosts. Then I stop being a ghost, for one strike, in the one spot that matters. It worked. It usually works. One day it won't, and that'll be a very bad day. Not today. Then came the gross part. I climbed into a barrel of monster blood, which is exactly as revolting as it sounds, and let the scripture rip me open and stitch me back. The method is basically self-harm with homework attached, but my will had gone diamond hard from doing it over and over. The violent blood tried to twist my mind and bounced right off. The pain was an old friend by now. Aperture after aperture opened, brick after brick. My body stopped being a 15-year-old's. It became something a monster would think twice about biting. So picture the full inventory the harmless, spoiled brat was hauling around by now. A machine that turns trash into treasure, humming across 3 cities. A shadow assassin. A lion king on errands. An emperor thawing out. A poison goddess. A half-snake girl with a legend asleep in her eyes. A body forged from 100 beasts. A guild convinced I have a god for a master. And fire. The kind that ends up on the continent's most wanted list. Here's the part that still makes me laugh. Every single one of these, the story meant for somebody else. The Emperor was Renhan's prize. The Poison Girl was written to suffer for 100 chapters first. The treasures were rewards for heroes who bled. I just showed up early. Slot machine in one hand, shadow at my back, and signed for all of it before the real protagonist got out of bed. That's the whole cheat when you strip it down. I'm not stronger than the story. I'm just earlier. The Taggart Desert is a furnace full of snake people, and I walked into it on purpose. I made my way to a mercenary outpost, the Mo Tai Group, run by 2 brothers, Li Gangkok and Li Jian, and I arrived at a very convenient moment, because one of them, Li Guang, had an arm that was slowly rotting off from snake venom. Now, I don't advertise it, but somewhere between the Pill Emperor inheritance and a mountain of practice herbs, I'd turned into a genuinely dangerous alchemist. Poison? Poison's just chemistry with an attitude. I looked at his arm, told him if he waited any longer he'd lose it, and wrote out a list of herbs. His brother sprinted off to gather them. Just like that, the fearsome desert mercenary commanders were treating a teenager like a visiting saint, the power of a good pill. They gave me a guest room to rest in while the herbs came together, and that's where I met her. The door opened quietly, and a small figure crept in with a basin of water. A girl, maybe a little younger than me. Green outfit, timid as a rabbit that already knows the world plans to hurt it. She flinched when she saw I was awake, bowed fast, voice barely there. "My lord, are you awake?" I asked her name. I'm called Mei Li, and my heart did a quiet backflip because I knew that name. Mei Li, another face from the book. But I saw the fear in her when I stared too long. So I looked away and made up a soft lie, that she reminded me of a maid I used to have. Here's what the story never let people see about Mei Li, and what I already knew. Near this desert, snake people sometimes take human women. Almost never does anything come of it. But once in a great while, a child is born of both bloodlines. And those children almost never live past the age of 2, because the world on both sides decides they shouldn't. Human and snake person, belonging to neither, hated by both. Mei Li was one of those children, and somehow she'd survived to 13, 14, which meant she'd simply collected more years of being spat on than most. I found out the hard way when she came to wash my feet, gentle and careful, and her sleeve slipped. On her snow-white wrist there were scales, faint, blue, beautiful scales. She saw me see them, and her whole face went white. She scrambled back into the corner, hugged her knees, and started to shake, whispering that she was sorry. She didn't mean to scare me. She'd learned to apologize for existing. for her own skin. I knelt down in front of her, reached out past that terrified flinch, and lifted her sleeve myself, looked at the scales she'd spent her whole life hiding, and I told her the truth. Such beautiful scales. She froze, because in her whole life, I was the first person to call the thing that scared even her beautiful, and something cracked open in that small, scarred-over heart. She looked up at me with eyes that had a strange green shimmer deep in them, and asked, barely breathing, "Aren't you afraid, sir?" No, I wasn't. I fixed her sleeve, helped her up, apologized for startling her, this time meaning it, and she stood there twisting the hem of her shirt, stunned, because I was also the first person who'd ever apologized to her. I asked her to show me around the outpost, and walking through it, I saw the whole thing play out. Every mercenary we passed lit up to greet the visiting alchemist, big, warm smiles, until their eyes slid to the girl beside me. Then the smiles went cold. Some of them looked at her with open disgust. These are desert people. They've buried friends killed by snake people, and every time they see a girl with that filthy blood in her veins, the old hatred just rises up, and they can't hold it down. I get it. I do. Doesn't make it easier to watch her small body flinch smaller with every ugly look, that lovely face going dark under the weight of it. So around a corner, out of their sight, I stopped. She looked up, worried she'd done something wrong, and I said the thing nobody had ever bothered to say to her. Mei Li, don't care so much what other people think. Remember this. You're not living for them. You're living for yourself. Then I ruffled her hair and kept walking. She stood there for a long moment, and when she caught up to me, there was a new light on her face, and 3 tiny green dots had quietly reappeared deep in her eyes, and she murmured, "Thank you, sir." She didn't know it, but those green dots were a legend waiting to wake up. Jade Snake 3-flower pupils, a power that one day could swallow monsters whole into a space inside her own eye. In the book, she got kidnapped before she ever learned to use it. Not on my watch. I'd looted 100 secret vaults before I let anyone take her from me. But that's the long game. Right then, she was just a kid who'd finally been told she was allowed to exist. And she followed the boy who told her, close and quiet, deciding somewhere in that broken heart to help him however she could. I'll be honest with you. Under all the scheming, that one landed. I came to the desert to catch a queen. I did not plan on adopting a heartbroken half-snake girl along the way. Life's like that. While I was collecting people, my other tools were busy collecting the map. There's a little beast I'd picked up called the Void Earth Drilling Beast. Squeaky little thing, lives in my arms, drinks purple crystal source like juice, and it can tear open void gates, doorways through space. I'd already used it to link 3 cities together, Blackrock, Mo City, Stone Desert, so I could hop between them in a blink. Best courier service on the continent, and it works for snacks. I also had it burrowing underground on a specific hunt, because somewhere beneath the desert, hidden in the earth, was that flame I wanted, a strange fire. And who better to find something buried than a beast that lives in the dirt? 2 bottles of crystal source a day, and my little drill went looking for the holy grail of alchemy for me. So picture where I was, a desert outpost, a rotting arm healed with a wave of my hand, a forgotten emperor curious about me 1 city over, a treasure map assembling itself, a strange fire being sniffed out underground, a broken girl deciding I was worth trusting, and a snake queen out in the sand, the most feared woman in this whole region who had absolutely no idea that the biggest threat in her life wasn't a rival clan or a hero from the story. It was a kid with a slot machine, a lion, and a shadow, and I was coming for her. Let me tell you about my favorite hire, properly this time, because a squeaky little beast quietly became the most valuable thing I own, the Void Earth Drilling Beast. Picture a purple gremlin that lives in my sleeve and communicates entirely in squeaks. Doesn't look like much. Looks like something you'd shoo out of a pantry. But this little thing does something that whole sects would go to war over. It tears holes in space. Burrow into the ground, and it doesn't just dig a tunnel, it opens a void gate, a door through the world. Step in one side, step out somewhere else entirely, no matter how far. And once it's built a gate somewhere, that gate stays open for it to use again. Do you understand what that means for a guy running a scam across an empire? I linked cities together. Blackrock City, Mo City, Stone Desert City, 3 void gates, 1 for each, all stitched into a single network. And with that, I could stand in 1 city at breakfast and be 3 cities away by the time the tea cooled. No roads, no travel, no warning. Just a purple flash and a gremlin, and I'm gone. Think about what that does to every plan anyone could make against me. You want to trap me? I'm not there anymore. You want to guard the exits like a certain dead mercenary boss tried? There are no exits. I don't use doors. I use holes in reality that only my beast can open. It also made me the fastest courier alive. Shade needs to deliver a threat 2 cities over. Voidgate. I need a rare herb from a market I'll never physically visit. Voidgate. The whole continent shrank down to arm's length. And the only toll was a couple bottles of purple crystal source a day. Best employee I ever had. Squeaks, naps in my sleeve, bends space for juice. And I aimed it at more than travel. Because a beast that lives underground and moves through the earth like water is the perfect thing to send hunting for something buried. I already told you it dug up a strange fire out of the desert. That wasn't a lucky accident. That's the job. I point at the ground and say there's treasure down there, and my little drill goes and gets it. And it comes home dirty and thrilled and shoves its face into my arms for payment. So while my rivals plotted routes and posted guards and tried to figure out where the mysterious young lord would appear next, I had a gremlin in my sleeve that made the entire concept of distance optional. You can't ambush a man who doesn't travel. You can't corner a man who leaves through the floor. And you definitely can't out-scheme a man whose scariest asset drinks fruit juice and takes naps. The story hands its heroes flashy swords and legendary flames. I got mine too. But some of the best pieces on my board weren't weapons at all. A gremlin that eats distance. A lion that runs errands. A shadow that eats mansions. Turns out the real cheat isn't being the strongest thing in the room. It's owning every strange little advantage the strongest things never think to grab. Back in the desert, my herbs came together. Time to save an arm. Li Guang's poisoned arm was hours from the trash. I brewed the cure, applied it, and watched the black rot pull back like a tide going out. The commander who could barely lift the arm flexed his fingers and nearly wept. Just like that, the Motia mercenary group belonged to me. Not by force, by gratitude. A cured arm buys more loyalty than a raised fist ever could. Two brothers, a whole outpost, an army in the sand. Mine because I know chemistry and they didn't. That's the thing nobody in this world respects until it saves their life. An alchemist isn't a support class. An alchemist is a nuke that also fixes your arm. While the brothers swore themselves to me, my burrowing beast came home dirty and thrilled. Squeak into my arms because it had found the thing. Deep under the sand, past rock and heat, the green lotus core flame. The strange fire I'd sent it hunting. It burrowed down, wrapped the whole find in a void gate, and dragged it up into the light for 2 bottles of juice. Best hire I ever made. Digs up legendary fire, bills me in fruit drink. I won't pretend refining a strange fire is safe. These flames kill more alchemists than any monster. They're wild, they fight the leash, they burn the greedy to ash without a second thought. But I had a body forged from 100 beasts, and a will hammered flat by the scripture, and a system that stacks the odds. So I took the fight, and I won it. And the green flame settled into me like it had finally found a home worth burning in. Now I didn't just conjure fire. I carried a flame that ranks on the continent's list. The holy grail alchemists die chasing, sitting in my palm, doing what I say. 2 strange fires, actually, once the tie-in flame came together. Because why own 1 nightmare flame when you can own 2? And the desert wasn't done giving, because out in that sand lived the snake people, and the snake people had a queen, the most feared woman in the region, the one whose seal ruined an emperor. And every day I spent building my army in her backyard, I was drawing the map to her front door. Little Mei Li felt it before I did. The snake blood in her, quiet and sharp, could sense her own kind on the wind. She didn't know why I kept asking about strange movements near the city. She just answered, soft and careful, the way she answered everything. She had no idea she was helping me hunt the queen of the very people who made her an outcast. And honestly, when she finds out someday that I dragged that queen home in chains, I think the girl who was spat on her whole life is going to enjoy it more than I will. So the pieces sat exactly where I wanted them. An army sworn to me, a strange fire in each hand, a poison goddess and a half-snake girl at my side, a forgotten emperor 1 city over, curious and cracking, and a snake queen in my crosshairs, strong and proud and completely unaware that the biggest predator in her desert wasn't a rival clan. It was the polite kid asking her maid about the weather. Time to go catch a queen. You want to know how you catch a 9-star queen when you're not a 9-star anything? You don't do it fair, you do it smart, and you do it with friends. Let me set the board. Queen Gorgon is a 9-star Do Huang. On a good day, she'd flatten me without noticing. So I made sure it wasn't a good day. First, I didn't hunt her alone. I had my Lion King. The Amethyst Wing Lion King is a Do Huang beast in its own right, the old ruler of a whole mountain range, and it owed me its son. When I pointed it at the queen, it went. A king against a queen, out in the open sand. Second, I picked my moment. The desert is her home, but the desert is also full of enemies. And a queen who's been fighting is a queen who's already bleeding. I waited until she was worn and wounded, tail torn, guard down. You don't fight a lion at full strength. You fight it after it's already been in 3 other fights. Third, I had a shadow she'd never see and fire she'd never expect. Shade in the dark. 2 strange flames in my palms. And a body forged from 100 beasts that could take a hit meant to end a normal man. So we boxed her in, the Lion King in her face, roaring, trading blows, my shadow at her back, and me in the middle of it, throwing everything, palms and fire and phantoms, not to kill her, but to wear her down to the exact point where a seal would hold. Because killing her was the amateur move. Killing her gets me a corpse. Sealing her gets me the most feared woman in the region on a leash. And the leash on Gorgon is a key to something I wanted much more than a dead snake. It was ugly. It was long. She did not go quietly, because queens never do. But 3 against a wounded one, with fire and shadow and a body that won't quit, only ends one way. Her tail buckled, her aura guttered, and I clamped the seal down before she could gather herself, locking that towering 9-star power away until she was no stronger than a common fighter. The queen of the snake people went out cold in my arms, sealed, caught, mine. I hauled her back, treated her wounds, and set her in the room next to Mei Li to wake up and discover her new reality. I'll be honest about the timing here. Yes, the same girl whose people made Mei Li an outcast, I dragged home in chains and stuck 1 wall away from the outcast in question. I did not miss that irony. Neither, I suspect, will Mei Li, the day she works out who's snoring next door. But the queen wasn't a trophy. Not really. She was a key. Because there's a forgotten emperor one city over, rotting in a map shop, and the woman who sealed his power decades ago was the same proud queen, now unconscious in my spare room. I didn't just catch a monster. I caught the answer to a debt an emperor gave up on paying. The most feared woman in the region. In my guest room, on my terms. She woke up swinging, obviously. First thing she noticed was that she was somewhere strange and that her snake tail was bandaged, which meant somebody had saved her, which enraged her more than getting hurt had. Then she noticed the clothes. Someone had changed her out of her ruined ones while treating her. She did not take that well. A killing intent rolled off her strong enough that I felt the chill through the wall. Cute. Who exactly did she plan to kill? She reached for her power to wreck the room, and nothing happened. She reached again. Nothing. And the color drained out of that proud, aloof face. Because the queen of the snake people had just discovered she'd been knocked down to the strength of an ant. Impossible, she whispered. That's impossible. The woman who looked down on everyone, panicking because the strength she looked down from was gone. That's when I opened the door. That's certainly true, I said, walking in with the most punchable smile I could manage. She recognized me instantly, and before I could even land my opening line, she threw a palm strike at my head. Rude. Queen Gorgon, you didn't expect this, did you? Was as far as I got. Can you at least let me finish talking before you attack? Crazy woman. But I wasn't worried. We were both great fighter level now, and she was injured. And I'd been curb stomping things that outclassed a great fighter for months. I met her palm with heaven-covering palm. Bang. The queen who ruined emperors went flying backward onto the bed, coughing up blood. I winced a little. It took forever to wake her up, and now I was worried I'd knock her right back out. Hey, calm down, I told her. I'm the one who saved your life. You're hurt. You can't beat me right now. Just reasoning with her. Very generous of me. She thought about the changed clothes, decided I was responsible, and got angrier. Snake tail thrashing, ignoring every word. Damn human, I'll kill you. So I hit her again. Bang. Second heaven-covering palm. Same result. Back onto the bed. And before she could gather herself, I flickered across the room with my shadow art, got a hand around her long neck, and pinned her flat. It seems, I said, gripping her throat, staring down at the queen of the snake people, helpless under my hand. You still haven't figured out your situation, my queen. You think I really wouldn't dare kill you? The most feared woman in the region. Pinned by a teenager she'd have stepped on a season ago. If she had any self-awareness left, this was the moment to find it. And here's the beautiful part. The real value of catching this particular queen wasn't the queen. It was the key on her belt, because she's the one who sealed Elder Long Feng, the forgotten emperor grinding away in a map shop, hollow and bitter, one city over. His whole tragedy, his lost decades, his rotting legend, all of it traces back to this woman under my hand, and I had her, sealed, pinned, and mine. So think about what I could walk into that map shop with now. Not gold, not a trade. I could walk in and offer a fallen emperor the one thing he'd wanted for decades and given up on, his power back. And the person who took it, kneeling. That's not a business deal. That's the kind of debt a man pays with the rest of his life. So I went back to that map shop. The old man was where I left him. Head down, brush moving, drawing his perfect little maps in his perfect little exile. He didn't look up. Of course he didn't. Not for sale, he said. Same 2 words as last time. I didn't come for the map, I said. That got a flick of the eyes. Just one. I didn't play the polite stranger this time. I let him look at me and feel the pieces land, one by one. The kid who tanked his full aura and smiled. The kid who chatted about Do Huang like it was weather. And then I said a name he hadn't heard spoken with fear in a very long time. Queen Gorgon. The brush stopped. I told him she was alive, sealed, wounded, currently unconscious in a room in my inn, one wall away from a little half-snake maid. The woman who took his power. The woman who turned the Ice Emperor into a man who draws maps for strangers. I had her leash in my hand, and I was standing in his shop holding it out. For a long moment, the old man didn't move. And when he finally raised his head, the tired old map seller was gone. What looked up at me was older and colder and infinitely more dangerous. Decades of buried rage thawing in real time. You, he said slowly, had better not be lying to me. I wasn't, and he knew I wasn't, because no one lies about holding Gorgon. You don't joke about a leash on a nightmare. Here's the offer I put on the table, and it's the best deal I ever made. His power back, not a fraction, not a favor, the whole Ice Emperor, restored. And the woman who took it, kneeling in front of him if he wanted her to. In exchange for one thing, him. His loyalty, his blade, his frozen fury, pointed wherever I pointed it. To a man who'd rotted for decades over exactly one wound. That's not a transaction, that's a resurrection. He took it. And then I dropped the last card. Because a debt lands 10 times harder when the man learns he already owed you. I told him who I was. Etheria Kalen Kai, young lord of the Etheria family, which made this grumpy map seller, technically, on paper, one of my own family's grand elders. He'd been sworn to serve the Etheria heir for longer than I'd been alive, and the reckless heir he'd have rolled his eyes at was the one who walked into his exile holding the key to his whole life. The old iceberg stared at me. Then he laughed, short and rough, the laugh of a man who's just realized the universe has a sense of humor after all. The Ice Emperor came back to life, and he came back mine. Let me remind you what the story wanted to do with this man. Hand him to Renhan. Years from now, a thawed, loyal, free henchman for the favorite son, delivered right on schedule. I intercepted the package, signed for it myself, and left the future emperor a slip that says, try again. So let's do the full count. 2 Do Huang in my pocket now, my shadow in the dark, and an emperor at my side. A lion king running errands, a poison goddess, a half-snake girl with a legend asleep in her eyes, a body forged from 100 beasts, 2 strange fires, a guild that thinks I have a god for a teacher, a slot machine that eats the world, and a snake queen in the spare room, deciding, slowly, whether she'd like to keep breathing. I came to this world a barnacle looking for a boat to cling to. Now I owned the harbor. There was only one thing left before the real game began. Go home. Back to the capital I fled as a nobody. Back to the family. Back to the grandfather who still thought I was his spoiled, powerless little grandson. Time to show the old man what his boy dragged home from the sand. But before I show you the homecoming, you need to understand what I was flying back into. Because the capital isn't a bigger version of that first little town. It's a different world. The whole time I've been playing in Wutan City, wrecking 3 broke families who saved less than $1 million gold a year between them. That was the kiddie pool. Real money lives in the capital, and at the top of the capital sit 3 names. The big 3 of the entire empire. The Etheria family, the Chen family, and the Sterling family. Old blood, deep roots, fingers in business and military, and, if the whispers are true, tangled up with the royal family itself. These aren't families, they're powers. And my family, the Etheria family, is one of them. Which means the spoiled brat I woke up as, he wasn't some minor lordling. He was the heir to one of the 3 thrones under the throne. He just happened to be, until recently, completely useless. That's the reputation waiting for me in the capital. Etheria Ren's grandson, the doted-on little prince who couldn't fight his way out of a wet paper bag. Every great name in that city had spent this body's whole childhood filing me under harmless, a soft heir, a future they didn't have to worry about. And the timing was almost poetic. Because I wasn't just coming home, I was coming home for the coming-of-age ceremony. In the Etheria family, when the heir turns 16, the whole capital watches. Every great family sends someone, rivals, allies, proud old names, all of them gathered to size up the next generation of the big 3. It's a coronation and an inspection at once. The day the empire officially decides what to make of you. The old man, my grandfather, had been losing his mind over it for days, planning it, fretting over it, terrified his precious grandson wouldn't make it back in time to stand up in front of everyone and be judged. He was worried I'd embarrass the family. He had no idea. Because every one of those proud names flying in to measure the soft little Etheria heir was about to get a very different measurement. They were coming to inspect a barnacle. They'd find the tide. And here's the part I kept close, the part that made the whole thing delicious. I wasn't going to show them everything. Not the machine, not the emperor, not the queen in the spare room. A card like that, you don't spend at a party, you bank it. I was going to walk into my own coming of age, looking like exactly what they expected, the harmless heir, and then let just enough slip to rearrange every assumption in the room while keeping the real hand face down on the table. Let them underestimate me one last time. It's so much sweeter when they find out slow. So that's the board I flew home to. 3 great families, a whole capital of proud names, a ceremony built to judge me, and a grandfather praying I wouldn't humiliate him, not knowing his grandson had come home carrying more firepower than the 3 great families put together. Now, let me show you the homecoming. 3 days of flight across the void, and the capital came into view, Jiama Holy City. The place I'd fled the day I arrived in this world, weak and cheatless, running off to cling to Renhan's coattails because I had nothing else. Back then, that city felt like a mountain I'd never climb. Now I looked at it and thought, with my current strength, I could take this whole city without trying. Funny how a year changes things. Elder Long Feng flew beside me, the Ice Emperor breathing free air for the first time in decades, muttering that he'd finally set foot in this place again after all these years. And little Mei Li trailed behind, wide-eyed at a city bigger than anything she'd ever seen, whispering that as long as I was there, she'd love anywhere. I told her not to worry. Wherever I go, she comes. Then we walked up to my own family's front gate, and the guard stopped me. New guys, didn't recognize me. This is the Etheria family. State your business. I'm being blocked at my own front door. This is what I get for handing my token to a poison girl in a cave. Are you new? I sighed. Go tell the head guard, Captain Wang, to come out and see me. They exchanged looks. One ran inside. A minute later, out came a burly, middle-aged man who took one glance and nearly had a heart attack. Because it was Captain Wang, and Captain Wang knew exactly who I was. He roared at the guards for daring to block the young lord, and they scattered in terror. The clan head, he told me, had been worried sick for days. My grandfather. I went in. Walked the halls I grew up in, Mei Li and Elder Long Feng quiet behind me, and made my way to the old man's side room. Now, my grandfather, Etheria Ren, clan head, a fighting king, and the man who spoiled the original owner of this body absolutely rotten. In this body's memories, he never once raised his voice at me, doted on me my whole childhood, which made walking through that door interesting. He was in there fretting over my disappearance, ordering his men to find me before the coming-of-age ceremony. I pushed the door open in white and said, "No need, Grandpa, I'm already back." His old face lit up with joy. "My dear grandson." And then it curdled straight into fury. "Stinky brat, where the hell have you been? Kneel down." I blinked. In all this body's memories, he'd never once been strict with me. "Grandpa, don't be angry yet. Let me explain." "Explain? On your knees. If you want to explain, you'll do it kneeling." And he turned to the man in black beside him. "Take this kid down. Let's see if he's gotten too big for his britches." That man in black was his personal agent, a great fighter, captain of the old man's private death squad, a killer who answered to nobody but my grandfather. And he stepped toward me to force his young lord to his knees. "Sorry, young lord," the agent said, and struck. A sharp claw, aimed to subdue, not to kill, because even he didn't want to actually hurt me. I watched it come, calm as still water, and just as the claw reached me, I gathered a whisper of my strength and threw one palm. Boom. The man in black flew backward, hit the floor, and went out cold. One palm. He'd held back, not wanting to hurt me. I'd held back too, because with what I was actually carrying, I could have ended him without trying. Neither of us used real force. It didn't matter. He was unconscious, and the room had gone very, very quiet. My grandfather stared at the crumpled body of his own death squad captain, then at me. His mouth opened, and nothing came out for a second. "Stinky brat," he finally managed, disbelief cracking his voice. "Your strength?" A great fighter, his own hand-picked killer, dropped by his spoiled grandson with a single palm, which meant the boy he'd spent his whole life protecting had, somewhere out there, become a great fighter in his own right. In a year, starting from a kid who hadn't even broken through when he left. "Impossible," his face said, and under the shock, delight, because what grandfather doesn't want to be wrong like this? "Grandpa," I said, smiling at his stunned face, "can you listen to my explanation now?" He could. Suddenly, he was very interested in listening, and I gave him the same story I'd used to fool an ice emperor. Met a mysterious teacher, trained in secret, all very humble, all very fake, because the truth, a slot machine that eats the world, a lion king, a sealed snake queen, 2 emperors in my pocket, a poison goddess, and a half-snake girl, was not a thing you explained to a fighting king before dinner. And that's where I'll leave it, standing in my grandfather's side room, watching the old man's whole picture of me shatter and rebuild in real time. Because here's the thing he didn't know yet, that nobody in that city knew yet. I only showed him a great fighter's palm, a fraction, the smallest number I could get away with. The real hand, the one holding auctions that turn trash into legends, the one with a queen in the spare room. I hadn't played a single card of it, not to him, not to anyone. The coming-of-age ceremony was days away. The whole capital would be there. Every great family, every rival, every proud old name that spent this body's childhood thinking the Etheria heir was a harmless, spoiled brat. They were about to meet me, the real me, and they had no idea the harmless brat had come home carrying more firepower than any of them. I came to this world as a barnacle looking for a boat. I walked back into the capital as the tide. Let the ceremony begin.